Alright, so I'm going to combine some so-called, again, sacred geometry. I think, again, it's unfortunate that way. I wouldn't disagree completely, but it tends to either turn people away or to connect this, geometry to something that's not necessarily the case. But anyway, sacred geometry is the term, but we're talking about Euclidean geometry, and we'll be combining what I think is one of the most important, underrated elements of Hermeticism, and that being, well, geometry with weights and measure. Now, whether it's the more modern Freemasonic tradition, we see the tracing board is covered with symbols of weights and measure. Hermes was a god of weights and measure, of knowledge, essentially science, and Thoth, however you want to pronounce it, has exactly the same thing. That was their fundamental principles. But in this video I want to have a look. So we have St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna, one of these great cathedrals, groundbreaking in 1137, completed in 1160, one of these masterpieces of many elements, design, construction, that they will still able to support these massive roofs, the flying buttress, and all these elements that went into it. Truly masterpieces of engineering. They were using ancient tools. They did, apart from steel, which was available in the ancient time as well, but arsenical, copper, all these other portions. So these cathedrals were magnificent buildings, and they were used very simple ancient principles of lifting, carving, and all these other elements. But on the walls of the cathedral there are two little steel bars, and they will be easily overlooked, and the importance of them might be overlooked, but they're in themselves are encoding a lovely little piece of information, and especially would be connected to the market. So for instance, these two bars represent the Viennese drapery L. Now the L is a unit of measure that is was still some places still used in regards to fabric. So the top bar represents the drapery L. Drapery, most curtains, that type of stuff. But you also have the linen L represented on the bottom bar, which is also the Viennese yard. Now that's cool, because it's important to, this is one of the constant important themes of weights and measures. We have the importance of units of measure, not just for accuracy, but also for social stability. So for instance, whether it's someone coming into market to buy some linen or textiles, or whether it's someone selling them, you have these weights and measures set up next to the market. So that's the law. There's no, people can't be cheated, and if you're caught cheating, you get in a lot of trouble, and well, that's the importance of it. But this particular L is also encoding a lovely little secret which is embedded in sacred geometry. And this particular tool, you've all seen them. This is one of the basic drawing tools that a basic tech drawing, mechanical drawing kit, the 30, 60, 90 degree square, and very important. Well, this in itself is some lovely maths, arithmetic in there, but it's also an excellent conversion tool for weights and measures, and once again it's embedded in the Vesica Pisces. So I'm going to start with a construction line. And again, these cathedrals, beautiful buildings. It's awesome science went into it. The craft guilds, which would eventually, like the stonemasons, the tilers, these types of groups were integral in building these things. It was a massive jump forward. But so we begin with the Vesica. You start with a circle without changing the compass. The second circle is on the edge of the first, and there you have all the basic elements of it. Now, if I was to, so for instance, we know that the width of that is 1, and well, it's not too well actually. So what happens is that just to illustrate, the width of this, if that is 1, therefore the height is 1.73200508, or the square root of 3. We can get that from Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Once again, this was an integral tool. The symbolism is built into the old craft guild stonemasons, engineers, going back through some time, and still in Freemasonic tradition, for instance, which is a carry on of these older systems of knowledge. But as a demonstration, we can prove that, and we do that by firstly drawing a line down the middle here, and now we're using this rhombus pointed out in some earlier videos. And so what we have here is this particular triangle. Now that triangle is exactly what is embedded in this 30, 60, 90 degree square, and we can prove that because, well, so for instance, we know the original unit, which is defining these circles. And so, okay, so if we begin, so let's begin. So let's call this, for ease, we're going to call that 1. So 1/2 of the radius is 1, and we know that that is double that, so we know that that is 2. Therefore, from Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, we have so okay, here we have a, so 1 squared plus, this would be b, so let's just call that x for the moment, x squared equals c squared, which we have is 2, so c squared equals 4. So 1 squared is 1 plus x equals 4. Quick bit of maths, and then we can work out that x is the square root of 3, and well, because 1 plus 3 equals 4, then x will be squared, so we find the square root of that, and that would by definition be the square root of 3. All right, so we know that this is the square root of 3. So I'll just now... Okay, since we're on the topic of St. Stephen's, one of these great cathedrals, 1137 was groundbreaking, but pointed out in earlier episodes in this recent series and many others, the importance of these great cathedrals, how their textbooks in stone, they embody through proportion and through dimension some very important numbers. And so focusing on the Vesica Pisces, square root of 3, best whole number approximate is 265 over 153, 153 being a very important number, not just in Christianity, but you'll find it in so many other places, especially connected to the esoteric Freemasons and etc. But here are some examples of some pretty standard Christian art. Also worth noticing the 4 figures around the outside, which just happen to be constellations, processional symbols of 4 cardinal points: the lion, the bull, the angel, and the eagle. But in the Bible, amongst of the very specific numbers that are mentioned, 153, the miraculous draft of fishes. So just like 33 and 273, these numbers are encoded, but they're very important numbers for many arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, just to begin as well. Now, I know there's also a musical connection, but that's something else. Well, St. Stephen's is 153 cubits wide, and that's a direct connection to this very important number in the Christian tradition. But as pointed out in other episodes, other series, every cathedral needs to incorporate the number 144 in there, and the nave width in St. Stephen's 128 feet or 1440 Doric inches. The Salamis stone, ancient units of measure, once again. Now, draw that again to clear it up, because the weights and the measures of from St. Stephen's here in Vienna, and it's just interesting how so many of these systems are built on this geometry, and it makes perfect sense because it provides something of a constant. and so it's not as arbitrary as it might appear. And so we have the Vesica. We draw the line down there. Now I'll put the picture here of the particular bar with the measurements from St. Stephen's in Vienna, again going back to 1137. And so what we have there is that one Viennese drapery L. Okay, so we already established that this would be 2, and this line would be the square root of 3, or 1.73200508. I'll just write that up. Okay, so one, where are we? The drapery L. So has those, is encoded in those bars. This would be one drapery L. So this line would be one drapery L, and this and that would be the Viennese yard. Or one linen L. Now, so you have also some other famous, important L's of history was the Flemish, the French, and the English L, and I'll put that info up here because they also correspond nicely to this particular pattern. And so this very simple geometry, which earlier, just a recent upload, talked about the metrology and how these numbers connect to the sun, earth and moon systems of measurement across several ancient units of measure. And we see once again that some very plain, very innocuous, people wouldn't even, even begin to imagine how much information. So whether it's the foot ruler, for instance, this is the so-called relatively modern English foot, is at least 2,500 years old. All that these units of 12 and what they convert to, and how they embed these beautiful systems of knowledge in a geometric form as well. So this is, this geometry is universal. Whether you're on Alpha Centauri or on Earth or wherever, these laws are universal laws. And that's the beauty of them. That's why they're so important, and that's why these very clever Hermeticists of centuries ago and millennia ago used this geometry in the construction of their temples, whether it's the floor plans, the height, the proportions, city plans, right up until this day, and whether it's modern rock star architects like Norman Foster, Anish Kapoor, the sculptor. These guys are all still doing it. It's hidden in plain sight, and again, it would break the assumption. We have a lot of assumptions on what the basis of where our science comes from, and a lot of that's something else. But these are measurable, testable facts going back through time. It's embedded in some lovely little things. Weights of measure might be considered dry, but it's the fundamental core. So just like geometry and arithmetic is a foundation stone, a cornerstone of science, so is weights and measures. And that's why this universal cosmic geometry, now I don't say cosmic in the kumbaya sense, I mean cosmic is in that it's across the cosmos, the same rules apply. And this is it. This is so these little simple tools that we get in school and we think that there's no connection to them because they're so important still to mechanical drawing, technical drawing, science, etc. It's that there is not this ancient element connected to them, but well, there is, and it's been written through time, written through countless temple plans. Well, yeah, okay, that's the whole point of it, but sacred geometry, there's so much, it's virtually limitless what you would go through. I would weights and measures, I think, would be, but anyway, geometry, weights and measures, architecture, all this symbolism bleeds in together. It's a beautiful harmonic system, and that's one of these unity points, harmonic points. Sun, earth, moon and stars, arithmetic, music, geometry, weights and measures, Hermeticism, the wisdom of Thoth. This is it. And what can I say anyway? So cheers, hope you enjoyed and have a good one.